countries, that's South Africa, Mozambique, and Tanzania, although now we have invited a number of countries, including Angola, Lesotho, Swaziland, to be part of the TPC, as we call it. Thank you.
Thank you, General. Oh.
General, good morning. You have there 5.2. What is that organization? What does it do?
Okay. The Southern African Regional Police Chiefs Cooperation Organization, this is a structure or a body that actually brings all the police chiefs in the region, and they coordinate on issues of crime in the region, particularly your either cross-border crimes or transnational organized crime. So the National Commissioner would be the chairperson for the country. However, the chairperson rotates. I think currently it is sitting with, with Malawi. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner.
General, if you could then move to the key roles and responsibilities of your division with a particular focus on the units that you oversee.
Okay. Chairperson, under my leadership, I actually have 8 components that I'm leading, starting with your crime investigation service, serious violent crime investigations, organized crime investigations, commercial crime investigations. Also from the detectives, lastly will be the family violence, child protection, and sexual offenses. If I move to forensic, I'm also responsible for criminal records and crime scene management, forensic science laboratories, as well as quality management component.
Thank you, General. And as you indicated, you are currently the acting DNC in crime detection. What are your responsibilities there? Okay. My responsibility entails providing oversight as well as strategic direction to 3 critical investigation programs within the SAPS, or let me say the crime detection business value chain. That will be crime intelligence, detective services, and forensic services. Thank you, General. We are now going to move on to the topic of disbandment of the PKTT. And to begin with, you explained that in December 2020...
Of all the times you could have run out of data, Suresh. Get your airtime, data, or even treat yourself to a gaming voucher. Do all this and more on your banking app, Standard Bank.
As part of
back to the head office.
Thank you, Commissioners. As part of protocols and as a requirement, all senior officers in the SAPS are deployed in support of provinces during the festive season, and the rationale is for us to monitor and oversee police operations in that particular area where you are deployed. So I was deployed in the Western Cape in support of General Pategile, who's the PC for Western Cape. And that would mean also doing your field, how can I call it? We also go to the field where we do stop and searches, we do roadblocks, we make sure that there's visibility in the province, as well as we also assist the members and guide them in terms of doing your tracking and also tracing of wanted suspects.
Thank you, General. And when did you then return to head office?
I returned back to head office on the 3rd of January. However, I already had submitted my pre-planned leave that took place from the 6th, returning back to work on the 17th of January, 2025.
Thank you, General. You then say on your return to work, you had an informal discussion with Lieutenant General Khumalo. Can you tell the Commission about that interaction and what you were discussing?
Maybe before I start, I want to provide context in terms of my relationship with General Khumalo. And I know that this maybe also will touch on Commissioner Khumalo. I actually grew up Kosi Khumalo. and that is my father's surname. However, when I went to high school, when I was doing standard 8 at the time, I wanted to honor my grandfather who raised me, and that's a Mavimbela. So literally, I changed my surname back to Mavimbela, and I became Kosi Mavimbela. So me and Dumisani Khumalo, General Khumalo, we call each other Bhuti Ngosisi. So uthi siswami ngithi bhuti wami. And normally we don't ever have a serious, intense interaction. I mean, even with all these challenges, we don't have hey, come sit down. It's still Budwami, Seswami, and it's still Mama Uti. So I came back from leave, we meet, I can't remember where, but it was in one of the meetings. And he said to me, Seswami, uboss wakho uthi mangunikeza ama-dockets we-PKTT. Just like that. And we ngabuza ngobani. Then he says to me, no, uti uminister unikeze a directive that those dockets should come to the detectives. He says no, he gave him that instruction in writing. So I then said to General Khumalo, unfortunately, so mina ngiyiphoyisa. Uba iphoyisa means ukuthi when you instruct me, it must be in writing. And I think the discussion didn't go further. But also what prompted my mind at the time was, Kodu Khumalo has been the project coordinator of this task team from 2018. And I was there. I think when the meeting was called by Minister Kele, we were all invited. I think it was myself, General Ramatswele. Ramatswele was the section head for, at the time it was called specific crimes. Now it's called serious violent crimes. It was me, him, it was General Tsumane was the DNC at the time. General Musikidi was the divisional commissioner at the time. So we were all invited to that meeting that took place in General Mkwanazi's office, and he was the acting provincial commissioner. So he wasn't telling me something that I didn't know, because I would have prompted to understand what are you talking about. So I knew. And as far as I knew, he was doing well. When Minister Kele came and General Khumalo was appointed as the head of CI, I think a decision was taken that he actually proceeds with that role. And all of us supported it. So there was no way that now I could come and say, bring me the dockets. I needed to understand why. And for me, it was not in writing, so I couldn't act on it. And by the way, I think the commissioner spoke about Bo Mabari Bari. I didn't want to rely on Mabari Bari. I wanted something I could read. Thank you, commissioners.
General, somewhere in your statement, you mentioned the reason why the dockets had to come to head office. Yes. And on that you take issue, if I understand correctly, with the reason that was given by General Mutsepe.
Okay.
Do I understand the position correctly? Yes.
Yes.
What I'm not sure comes out clearly from your statement is whether you personally were told what that reason was, and who, if you were told, the person that told you was. And at what stage? Why must the dockets come to head office?
Okay.
Who told you and at what stage?
Nobody told me and Khumalo that the dockets must come to Pretoria. The letters, okay, eventually I got my letter on the 2nd of February. And I think just after that, the minister called a meeting in Cape Town, where he basically, I think it was an orientation meeting where we had to present to him specific topics, and I think mine was on the capacitation of the detectives. And unfortunately, lo and behold, on the 6th of February, my nephew Tato was fatally wounded, and I had to return home on the day because I couldn't cope. So for that reason, I think I took leave to be able to assist my family in making sure that Tato gets to rest appropriately. On returning, now Khumalo and I, we both had instructions that said, you General Khumalo, in your capacity as the project manager for the PKTT, hand over the dockets to General Sintumule, who is the Divisional Commissioner for Detective and Forensic Services. And I think the instructions were clear because if you look at it, it actually stated how the handover should take place. So Khumalo and I, he already had, I think, the National Commissioner's letter, which I never had view of. I relied on him when he said to me, the NATCOM had already written to the minister to provide a winding down approach proposal for his approval, for the minister's approval.
And your February letter was from General Sibia.
General Sibia, yes.
And it said nothing about the reason for the dockets to be brought to head office.
Maybe if the chairperson could allow me to read it into the record.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. I think it should be on the other bundle, HKS2. Okay. The letter read as such. The South African Police Service established the National Task Team on Political Killings to address the concerning rise in politically motivated murders and related crimes involving political figures. This specialized task team was dedicated to investigating, resolving, and preventing such incidents to ensure justice and maintain political stability in affected regions. On 31 December 2024, the Minister of Police issued a directive to the National Commissioner to immediately deactivate and disband the NTT-PK, which we call the PKTT. And he said in his letter, this decision was informed by an assessment that the task team no longer significantly contributed to policing efforts. So that's the only reason provided, that it no longer significantly contributed to policing efforts. But there was, for me, that's the only reason that I know, and I think coming from intelligence and compartmentalization, that is all that I worked on the instruction.
Thank you, General.
Thank you, Chair.
General, maybe while you are on the letter, can you please read paragraph 5 into the record?
Okay. In compliance with the aforementioned directive of the Minister of Police, you are directed, which is it's an instruction with steps, if you look at what it means, to engage with the Divisional Commissioner of Crime Intelligence with a view to do a proper handing over and to follow all processes to conduct a handing over process. And this includes, but not limited to, a report of all cases in terms of their status, a case register wherein all the cases were recorded and the current status of court-going cases and cases under investigation. All cases or projects, documentation relevant to the Political Killings Task Team, the PKTT. These should include all evidentiary material, documents, electronic recordings, etc. It must be booked into the SAPS S13 or in possession of the team or stored in any storage facility. All human and physical resources allocated, listed, as well as a report on all financial expenditure for the duration of the operations of the task team. That ends paragraph 5, Commissioner.
General, that 5.3,
Yes.
is that in short, is that a reference to the dockets? Is this where the instruction
I think
says you must take over?
5.3, can I say actually all of them except for number 5.4, they refer to dockets.
Okay.
because General Khumalo had to provide me with the state of where those investigations were, which he did, I think, in the plan that we developed.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ms. Bowe, I would like to ask something about paragraph 6, but if you're still going to deal with the letter, if you were planning to deal with the letter in your own way, I would rather leave it to that point.
Commissioner Baloyi, I was going to proceed chronologically from where we are. So if we want to deal with paragraph,
I'll postpone it. I'm happy to postpone it.
okay.
Okay. All right. All right, thank you. General, in that paragraph 6, which you haven't read,
Yes.
And I'll read it. It says, it is advised that the Divisional Commissioner, Detective and Forensic Services, that's you,
Yes.
okay, ensures that the case/investigations are taken care of to ensure that cases are not lost in court because of the deactivation and disbandment of the task team. I want to just understand how it works. You are at National. The PKTT dockets are
In
cases.
KwaZulu-Natal.
Yes.
Yes.
Ordinarily, how would it work? You are now being told you must ensure cases. What does it mean practically you would do? And does this reflect how, this kind of instruction, how ordinarily you would engage with provincial dockets? Or was this something out of the norm, your involvement here, as in paragraph 6?
If I may clarify, Chairperson or Commissioner, and I will take you back to 2018 when the team was established. The team, though based in the province, was a national task team. That's why General Ramatswele was the first project manager, and General Maqashalala. And General Maqashalala moved to the Western Cape. General Ramatswele retired. General Khumalo was appointed when he got promoted to level 14 general or 2-star general. So he was running a national project. That's why even the budgeting would come from national. That's why even the reporting will include all of us. So in essence, what General Sibia meant here was that I take over as the project manager. That's the understanding.
So you would take over from General Khumalo?
Yes.
That's what it would mean?
That's what actually he requested.
Okay.
And maybe just over and above what he wrote, it's also what he said, that General Khumalo was in crime intelligence, and therefore the investigations belong to detectives. Sure. Thank you, Chairperson.
And what's the significance of open quote advised, close quote, as opposed to, for example, instructed?
The instruction is already given. So he already instructed, and he gave probably a framework of how this instruction should be executed. Now he says, over and above what you're going to do, you must make sure that chain of custody, documentation related to the dockets, but also court processes don't get interfered with. Thank you.
Thank you.
General, just to take a step back, you were still in January.
Yes.
When you note at paragraph 16 that General Sibia also followed up after your conversation with General Khumalo about whether or not you're going to get the dockets. Can you explain that interaction?
No, thank you very much, Commissioners. Still in January, and I must say, Commissioners, I don't remember the date. We were in his office. Normally, he would call meetings in the morning, and I think post that meeting, then he asked me if I had engaged with General Khumalo on the handover of the PKTT dockets. My response to him was that much as General Khumalo has spoken to me, I didn't take the matter forward because he at least had something in writing, I didn't. So I couldn't go ahead with the instruction, and therefore if he wanted me to proceed with that instruction, he had to reduce it into writing, or in writing.
In general, just to confirm, at this stage, you had not been furnished with the directive that the minister issued in December?
To date, I have actually not laid my hands on that directive.
Can I just go back a bit? So when you first encounter General Khumalo
Yes.
on your return to work in January, was that the first time that you became aware of this decision? Or someone spoke to you, maybe let me be more specific, that someone said anything to you about this decision of the disbandment?
Yeah. You know, I think after the July 6 press briefing by General Mkhwanazi, I realized that actually I've never even seen this writing. Not on social media, I don't think I came across it. Nobody even showed it to me. So when it happened, I think maybe it's because the critical 2 weeks I was not on duty. Maybe if I was, I would have been made aware either by General Sibia himself, but no copy was ever shared. And it was actually for the first time that I heard from General Khumalo that the team was being disbanded. And again, it didn't provide reasons. Like I said, it was just, so for me, that was just, in jest actually. Yes.
And before, we know the decision was communicated at least on the 31st of December. At any point before this discussion with General Khumalo, so I'm going back even to
Yes.
2024, had you ever become aware of an intention or a conversation to disband the PKTT?
No.
Yes.
No, Chair.
And if there was such consideration or even discussion, by virtue of your position, and please explain a bit
Yes.
if you're able to, would you have expected to have been part of that conversation?
I think in actual, I'm covering this later in the statement, but maybe let me say it was business unusual, where you just have a decision like that to say disband a structure. Normally, what would happen, we actually would be called into a meeting where all the teams, we've got a number of intervention teams throughout the country, and then we manage those through the structure called NCCF, and they then, General Musigidi is the chairperson, so they would come provide progress report and we assess whether the intervention is working or not. And I think it is in that meeting where then, whether it's General Musigidi or the National Commissioner can say, we then can start decommissioning the team. So not only myself, crime intelligence will be there, visible policing will be there, forensic services will be there, because we all deploy our capacities in support of the team.
Thank you.
And General, just to go back into, you note that you also attended some of the IMC meetings where feedback was given on the performance of the task team. What were your observations of the performance?
In the police, we have what we call a 5-pillar approach when we do interventions. That means mobilization of all your competencies, intelligence, you've got your proactive, number 3 is combat, so that will be your TRT, national intervention and task force if it's required, or POP. And we also have number 4, that's the detectives and the NPA within that pillar. Then number 5 will be communication. So General Khumalo went over and above recovered, or actually any material relating to a firearm, they would immediately process that. But also he had members who, like the DFOs, who will do inspections on firearms. I remember in one of the successes where a consignment of firearms was discovered from a dealer, and not all of them were registered, and some of them were linked to crime. So in my assessment, it was the best practice. I even asked him to say, Mbulaz, I'll share a pillar, this operational approach in terms of now what they used as a framework to assess the progress. So it was working. And in the last IMC that I attended, 2022, if my memory serves me correct, because really I think some of the dates, as you grow older, you lose them. in that meeting, it was mentioned that the team should be strengthened and enhanced, particularly because of its effectiveness. And also it was said that the team should continue.
Thank you, General.
Can I just ask a follow-up question, Advocate
Yes.
Gore? I'm going to take the general back. Commissioner Baloy asked you about whether in the normal course you should have been involved in the
Yes.
discussion leading to the disbandment. I want to focus on the after, because in paragraph 9.7 of your statement, you say, as part of your role, you are responsible for liaison and collaboration with other stakeholders, including the NPA. Now, there's this letter of February 2025. You are aware of the disbandment, but you say you were not given the disbandment directive. Would it have been your role then to notify the NPA in KZN that, listen, the PKTT has been disbanded, there's an instruction to take the dockets and reallocate them to detectives? Please note that the structure you had in place is no longer going to work. This is now the new structure that is going to be in place. Would that have been part of your responsibilities?
Let me start responding to you by saying that this was business unusual, because we do, who's part of the team, to say we have a new directive and this requires that maybe we review our way of moving forward. I don't think here, for me, things happened. For starters, General Mkhwanazi should have been the first person to be notified. People have got a misnomer in their minds.
Sorry to interrupt
Okay,
you.
yes.
General Mkhwanazi should have been the first person to be
To be notified.
about the disbandment.
Yes.
Okay, continue
Yes.
from there.
Yes, because, and I hear people throwing this, you are the custodian of the detectives or the dockets. The provincial commissioner is empowered by the Act to look at all issues crime in the province. When we work at national, we work in conjunction with the province. General Mkhwanazi, because he and General Khumalo were responsible, if you look at the minutes, they were the ones reporting on the progress of the PKTT, not the divisional commissioner, not General Khumalo in his capacity as the divisional commissioner for crime intelligence. So General Mkhwanazi would have been, as the chairperson for the province, engaged with the DPP as they do even currently. So to answer your question, it would not have been in my position to actually inform all the role players of the disbandment.
Don't forget your point about the misnomer. You had just started saying something about a misnomer.
Yes, and no, it's about, and I remember, I won't mention the general, who went on TV and said, the dockets are mine. And I think that's why we are here, where we are today. At national, we don't own the dockets. The dockets belongs to a province. And the provincial commissioner, if I were to use the Kasi language, he's the last number of the province. I deal with General Mtombeni about dockets, General from Limpopo, General Khatev. I just don't decide. I engage with them because they are the people who are accountable for the stations and the workload of the stations.
And General, so now we are in February. You've already talked about...
Sorry, just to go back to, I think just to satisfy the chairperson. So this notion that you are the custodian of the dockets, maybe of the systems of managing the dockets, because in my role, I need to be able to provide the National Commissioner with the picture of the detective performance at national. For example, are we resolving on murder? Are we resolving on hijackings? I own the system. So I'm able to extract data that can give patterns. Let's say in Gauteng, we know that Gauteng actually holds the bulk of our crime. If I look at hijackings, if it's red, then I know that we need to intervene in Gauteng. So that is my role. Not that I can call dockets. Thank you, Chair.
Thank
So-
you, General.
Not that it's not permitted, but actually it must be done in conjunction with the provincial commissioner.
So whoever may have told Mr. Mokhotsi, whoever the SAPS, may have told Mr. Brown Mokhotsi that the dockets are going to General Sibia because they belong to him, would have misled him, if anyone told him that at all. They would not have been correct
I
from
am
what you're
tempted
saying.
to answer the commissioner, but I think my response would be in this manner. You can read between the lines. I submit. Thank you.
I shall not ask you, what do you mean?
General, sorry, I need you to clarify something. As I understand what you're saying, there's a difference between overall responsibility for dockets and physical custody of an individual docket or a group of dockets. Can you just clarify that for me so that I understand the difference between the two?
The structure for detectives is as follows, okay? You have the DNC, you have the divisional commissioner, you have the component heads, but to the DNC or the DEVCOM, you've got a dotted line with the deputy provincial commissioners. The DPCs are responsible, because they report to the PCs, for the dockets in the province. At national, if I were to, because I report on all dockets, even your high profile, at national, then that would be the divisional commissioner. But the PCs in the respective provinces have an authority based on the constitution to actually deal with, even when you look at our directives, it talks about the station commander, not a component head at national, responsible for the safeguarding, safekeeping of dockets. So in that manner, I'm trying to say, at national, much as we do have that leeway because we are at national, but we can never do anything on dockets without involving the province. If there's a complaint that is submitted on an investigation that is not probably done properly, or the family is not getting joy, we get involved, and if they say they would like the docket to be moved to DPCI, that's my role. I engage the PC, we write, and we say the docket will then be moved to the DPCI after engaging either General Mboto or General Nkosi. I think for me that needs to be clarified, because this is where, again, Chair, the misnomer is happening, or actually is.
Thank you, General. We are now in February, and you've explained that you received the letter from General Sibia, and you were also preparing for the ministers' meeting that was called in Cape Town. Before we talk more about sort of the interactions that you had in the execution of the letter, can you touch on sort of your relationship and the status of your relationship at the time with General Sibia? We had a very cordial relationship. Cordial in a sense that we have to work together, and I think we both realize that we have to work together. And I will not say it was one of the best relationships, because it's a touch and go. Today, you could be on these good books. Tomorrow, for no reason, you could be in his bad books. So for me, it was a touch and go relationship, but we had to acknowledge that we had to work together. I already was aware that him and Khumalo were not doing well. Our program in totality was struggling in terms of performance. So as leadership, we had to be able to work together. Thank you, General. You then left the meeting in Cape Town. Did you ever get feedback about...
Can I, before you discuss the Cape Town meeting, in paragraph 17, General,
Yes.
the very last sentence, where you comment about this letter that we've just looked at, you say, according to the DNC's letter, this decision was based on an assessment which concluded that the PKTT no longer made a significant contribution to the broader policing efforts. Can I please ask you to comment on that, your view whether you agreed with the view on your observation as divisional head at that point, about the impact of the PKTT and whether, in your view, it had run its course?
I don't think any team that is relevant will ever run its course. And I don't believe that you have to change something that works because maybe it doesn't work for you. For me, the directive, I was not favored with that assessment that was conducted. And I was not aware if there was an assessment that was conducted. And I didn't ask. Maybe a shortfall on my side, but I took it that maybe definitely they did a study. If Kumalo is saying he's bringing the dockets, maybe there was something in writing that said, indeed, maybe the workload has reduced, or maybe there was something that said the team actually could be, either maybe the detectives must go back to the detectives and all the combat members must go back to their environments. So my understanding of this was based on what I saw. However, knowing what I know, remember this team has been running over a period of time. So I was not sure whether really there was a meeting, because I've missed a number of meetings, like for example, the 2023 IMC I didn't sit. So I was not sure whether indeed there was a meeting that took place and also that then the team must be disbanded. Yeah.
And as at the time of this meeting in February with the minister, and as at today,
Yes.
did you ever become aware of an assessment that was done about the effectiveness
No.
of the PKTT?
No. And I think I do cover it also towards the end of my submission. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, General. When you returned from the Cape Town meeting, did anybody give you a briefing about what would have been the outcome, particularly in relation to this instruction?
I think upon my return, Kumalo and I, we arranged the meeting where we then had to sit to say, how do we implement this directive or instruction by the DNC? But there was no other meeting, whether called by the National Commissioner or the Minister, in relation to this. So we actually had to work with what we had before us.
And you say in that paragraph 18, I think if I understood you earlier, where you speak about this meeting, earlier your evidence, I think you said this was your first orientation. It was an orientation meeting of the minister and you were presenting to him for the first time. Did I hear you correctly?
Not necessarily for the first time, because the minister, I think, met different divisions for the better part of his last 4 months of the year. And I know there was a meeting in November, I was not part of it. So there were he would call it division and say, visible policing, come and present to me. So we were not called as yet. So in this meeting, we were called, but not only the detectives, it was all the divisions. And I think on the agenda, my part, if I remember very well, it was about capacitating the detectives. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I took it that, because the minister was still trying to understand the functioning of the SAPS.
Thank you.
General, on that point, just to make sure, in the 5 months in the preceding year, 2024, your division wasn't called to provide a briefing or orientation?
Where we were only as a division, no. But there was a meeting with the minister where he actually called us to come up with a plan on how to capacitate the detectives. Hence, on the 6th, we had to then present that plan to him.
But a general briefing hadn't taken place on the division as a whole?
No, not that I remember. And I'm saying this bearing in mind that my position also requires me to travel. It could have taken place in my absence, but where I was, no.
Thank you, General. And
Sorry, Ms. Bowe, I'm very sorry. I'll take you back 1 or 2 steps, General. Okay. You say that on your assessment, the minister was still orientating himself
Yes.
through calling these various meetings with this division, that division, and so on. So it's a firm view that he was at a stage where he was still orientating himself.
It is my view,
Yes.
and it will remain, because I think I've worked in state security. Our strength at the time was 3,000. I worked at NICOC. Our strength, I'm not sure, but we were not probably 2,000 or even less. In the police, when I arrived, the police were almost 200,000. That's like a cumbersome structure. I don't think any police minister will leave having said, I understood the police correctly. I am managing so many components. Sometimes when something comes, I'm like, but I was not aware, because it's impossible. I mean, it's a task that you really need a very strong management information team to always be on top of things. So the minister, I think, based on his duration of being with us, definitely he was still in the orientation phase.
I'm asking you this in the context of the minister's decision to disband the PKTT, which I understand to be a decision that had far-reaching implications. So I find it very odd that at a stage when the minister was still orientating himself, he could have taken such a decision. Do you wish to comment on that?
My comment is, I think your assessment is correct, but also to further add, I don't think maybe he anticipated that actually this had far-reaching implications. I'm not sure whether it was a lapse in judgment from his advisors or where it came from. But I don't think it was properly applied, and that's why today we are sitting here.
You refer to advisors. Are you aware of any?
I know that the minister has...
On this decision, advisors with regard...
I'm talking about an office, because the minister definitely, having been new or let me say even where he was, there should be people who have got the know-how, who are able to at least orientate and advise him.
Thank you, General.
Thank you, Commissioner.
General, you say that the far-reaching consequences. I know somewhere in your statement you speak about the effect on cases that were running. Can you just maybe now that you have mentioned the far-reaching consequences that you think the minister may not have been aware of, what, for example, maybe not for example, just speak to us about that. What are the far-reaching consequences you are referring to?
I'll start with, for me, the most strategic one. The police is in a pariah state as we speak because of that decision. Meaning that General Masemula and I spoke day before yesterday. He was looking for me and I was in consultation. Then he says to me, you, Musikidi and Dimpane are all in commissions. And I said, yes, General, it's because of what we did. It impacts on our day-to-day functioning, but also on relationships. And I'll start with General Khumalo, who actually had a very good relationship with the detectives. In honest reflection, now he actually has to question who he talks to, and at times he would want to talk through me. That's far-reaching, because operationally, when we talk about your intelligence-led investigations, General Khumalo is a pivotal role in us succeeding as detectives. So I'm just sharing with you a few.
General, you are now back. It's after the meeting that took place in Cape Town, and you're with General Khumalo to put together a plan to implement the two directives or instructions that you each have received. And you talk there about developing a plan. What plan was developed, and what considerations were you keeping in mind in developing this plan?
Okay. What we had in front of us was just an instruction with a framework of what needed to be done. And I think for those who are familiar with the art of war, you need a roadmap in terms of where you are going. And again, we realized that because General Sibia gave me 7 days on the letter to be able to do all of the actions that he prescribed. And I think if now on hindsight that actually there was immediacy to the disbandment. So we had to devise means to say, in line with the winding down approach, how then do we wind down to the disbandment? And I think we had then to develop a plan that spoke to key components of what could be elements of the winding down.
General, you speak about the winding down approach, and the directive speaks about immediate disbandment. Where does the winding down approach come from?
In one of the things that I mentioned, I think at the end of my statement, is that we also need to orientate the political principles on how we work. There's no immediacy to ending a project. If you say it ends now, it means I'm saying to the colleagues, where you are, just drop everything and go back to your respective environments. We are talking here cases that involve victims of crime, where people's lives were lost. So we need to be considerate and thoughtful. Maybe it's just words in writing or it's English, but in terms of how we implement, we had to be cognizant of what becomes the reality towards winding down.
And so, using those considerations, you developed a plan that we've attached as HKS2. Can you briefly summarize the key aspects of the plan? Commissioners,
If I may.
apologies, General, it is on page 3 of the annexures bundle.
Okay. But can I use paragraph 21, because it's almost the same, and then I'll go to the action plan on the annexures. Is that fine?
Yes, General.
Okay. The key components of the plan focused on the following. There were 125 dockets under investigation, and 10 dockets which were submitted to the NPA for decision, and all of those had to be transferred. And I must, maybe before I get to this one. So General Sibia said all the workload must come to head office. And my argument always is that I am not a police station. And at head office, we do carry dockets within General Mutsipe's environment in Ninu, and I think to a larger extent in organized crime under General Shibiri's environment. But we are not designed to actually carry dockets. And I'm saying I'm not a police station. General Kumalo Mbuso will tell you, I always say, don't bring dockets to me, I'm not a police station. Because the dockets actually are a key commodity of the police station. So in the discussions, even with the ministers' meeting, I think at the end of the day, it was agreed that those dockets must be removed from the PKTT as a team to the detectives within serious and violent crimes, and that will be a murder and robbery unit. So this then talks to that approach to say that dockets will be removed from the PKTT, but they must immediately go back to their province of origin, that is KwaZulu-Natal, and I think in relation to the 3 other dockets, that would have been Eastern Cape. The second...
So each station has got its own murder and robbery. Is that how it works?
Murder and robbery is a provincial competency because it's a specialized unit. But you will have general detectives at a station working on your normal murder cases. So murder and robbery would take such cases that are specialized or actually that garner national interest. So those will be based at a provincial level, not at a station.
So where an instruction is the dockets must go back to and the members of the PKTT must go back to their stations. What does that mean for what you've just explained?
It would mean that, let me start with the members. If members, because we call members on a call-up instruction to join a team. So if that team is decommissioned, they must go back, let me say, to their organized crime or serious violence, should stay with organized crime or serious violent crimes, or it must go back to the station. Yes.
So where you had, say, investigating officers
Yes.
in these dockets, and that investigating officer now goes back to their station,
Yes.
because that's the instruction. It means those dockets, if they are going to serious and violent crime, I think murder and serious, I think.
Yes.
the
Yeah,
name-
murder
that's
and
the name.
robbery, yes, yeah.
Yeah, if they go, the dockets go there, it means then there has to be a new investigating officer, unless a decision is made by the provincial authorities
Yes,
to bring
if-
that person in.
If I respond to you based on the instruction, it meant that those dockets will be removed from those investigating officers, and they will be assigned to new investigating officers, and those under investigation. Thank you, Commissioner.
General, you were telling us about the key elements
Oh,
of
yes.
the plan.
Yeah, so the second part was that all new reported cases on political killings will be referred to the serious and violent crime investigation units, and specifically murder and robbery units in KwaZulu-Natal. In the workload that we also had to look at, and I think this also talks to the letter of the 22nd of April, 297 finalized dockets, 57 withdrawn dockets, and 9 unfounded dockets were to be returned to their stations of origin for archiving, because all of these actually were closed dockets. 114 dockets on the court roll were to remain with the PKTT until they were finalized. Again, if you read this in relation to what General Sibia said, that actually even the court-going dockets must be taken away from the team and they must be given to the detectives.
And General, why was it your and General Kumalo's approach to have the 114 dockets remain with the PKTT? Why was that necessary?
It was not only mine and General Kumalo's view as well. I think National Commission General Musigidi, in the meeting that took place, I think, on the 6th of March with the minister, they supported this approach. And I want to use an example in responding to this question. So a docket already is placed on the court roll. Let's say it's a rape case. The investigator has been able to establish a rapport with the victim, the victim's family, the witnesses, and they have an understanding, cooperation, and it helps in expediting the investigation. Now, if you bring in a new person, I think in the GBV environment, we call it secondary victimization, because now you have to make this person to relieve the trauma. And it applies to also your serious violent crimes. If somebody's family, maybe it's a murder victim, now you must deal with a different person. And I'll give an example. As I said, I've got a mother whose child was kidnapped and disappeared. And she came to a point where she said, I'm not talking to anybody else. Because every time you bring somebody new, I need to start from scratch. And again, I need to relive the trauma of being a year without my son. So again, it's about taking cognizance of the impact of our decision. When a docket is on the court roll, again, there's a prosecutor, there's a relationship between the IO and the... So you cannot, for me, disrupt that value chain. Because, like I said, it can have far-reaching implications, even on the prospects of success for that particular case.
And in addition to those observations, which are quite important, there's also the question of the detective having to study the content of the docket.
Yeah.
And also get to know what still needs to be done. whereas the original investigator was already flowing or running, as it were. So there will be delays. And that in addition to the observations that you have made, which are quite important.
Thank you, Commissioner. And actually, you are now jacking my brain to think even further, particularly on the PKTT. These members are vested in what they do. And I mean, it happens everywhere in many environments, but because it's what we see, they actually make sure that whatever they start, they will run until they finish. And please don't ask me for statistics because I won't be able to give you. I'm just giving you a reflection of what I know and what I've seen. You know, the docket might be given to somebody not with the same zeal, not with the same energy and commitment. So in that sense, again, the family already, if you look at the police, if you look at the perception index of the police, I don't think we're doing so well. So these also further add insult to injury for the police.
On the zeal and good performance and so on, I'm sure General Motsepe, I hope it was her, would not agree with you.
Yeah.
Basically, I understood her to be saying there's nothing special with the PKTT. The rest of the detectives in the country perform as well as the PKTT is said to be performing.
Can I add, Commissioner, that actually there's nothing special about any of the units in the police because we are actually called to do what we do. It's the energy we bring that makes a difference. It's the image we portray to the communities that brings hope that actually my case is in the good hands. So it's a relative response, and I think to be safe, I leave it at that, Commissioner.
Perhaps now that we are talking about that and the performance, earlier you said because this was a multidisciplinary approach. To which you said General Kumalo added something. I will not go to what it is that he added. General Motsepe said there was nothing special with it because all of the facilities that you say and other witnesses have said were available to the PKTT are available to all generals, to all detectives countrywide. And when we raised with her the fact that, but look, there are dedicated, for example, ballistics experts within the PKTT who are able to expedite the testing process. And she was dismissive even of that, and she said even detectives in any other cases within the country are able to expedite those matters that they feel warrant to be expedited. So basically saying there's nothing special with having this multidisciplinary arrangement. What's your comment on that?
Yeah, now I feel I'm on the spot. Change is good. And for me, if anyone brings diversification in terms of how we can do things, I think it should be welcomed. Detectives at a police station and detectives in specialized units sometimes struggle for resources, for example, cars and phones, and and probably they would only look at what they have. So if someone who's a leader decides that I want to actually be the game changer in investigations, and therefore I'm applying this approach, I think as the head of detectives, I welcome it. In actual fact, General Nkomo, who was our previous DEFCOM, General Musikidi, we tried to actually establish what we call a just joint investigation support team at National, to have all those competencies that in case there's a priority crime that takes place, immediately you can mobilize those members and deploy them. So for me, it's about diversification and finding creative ways to expedite as well as do better in investigations.
Just to make sure I understand you, so are you saying this multidisciplinary approach was more effective than, let me loosely call it, ordinary or the usual approach to detecting crime?
I will respond again, Chairperson, by providing a live example. We're busy now with the plan on gang violence in the Western Cape. Whereas you would have some of these dockets being run as individual dockets, only with the detective who still has to go and ask for assistance from the NPA, some go to forensic. Now we are bringing, again, using the same method, all those under one roof, under General Maqashalala, who's a detective.
And
The
is this-
NPA is sitting, and because it is an effective methodology, now we even broaden it to include one of the critical elements in investigations, asset forfeiture, because it takes time to actually get that docket ready for court. And so we're also looking at other means of hitting the criminals, just over and above criminal investigation.
Thank you, General.
Thank you, Chair.
General, and you say in paragraph 19 that in the course of establishing or developing this plan, what was clear to you was that it wouldn't be possible to implement within 7 days.
It was not possible.
And is that then what informed this phased approach that you outline in the plan?
Yes.
And in general, you speak about a presentation that was then made before the 6th March meeting. Can you talk to us about that? That's at paragraph 20.
That presentation, I think, Chairperson, it's on the bundle. So let me just check. It's annexure. It's annexure. It's annexure 8KS 2, no?
3.
3, okay, HKS 3. No, 3, no, here it is. It basically was providing the minister with a proposal for his approval of ensuring that this is a process-driven disbandment. And General Khumalo, because he carried the caseload, prepared all the cases and their status as outlined in General Sibia's letter to me and to him. But what is critical, I think it is the page 10 of that plan. So over and above the proposal, an action plan was developed, which we call the implementation plan, which then sets out actions that were supposed to be undertaken in the winding down and provided the due dates and people responsible. But I must add that of all the actions, the most important action for the meeting was action number 3, that was the handing over of the dockets under investigation to the DEVCOM, detective and forensic services.
In general, just so that we can understand, when the plan says hand over the dockets under investigation, practically what were you envisaging?
Because already we had, through General Khumalo, done an assessment of how many dockets were there. It meant exactly that. So General Khumalo was supposed to physically hand over the dockets to the detectives under my command as set by the plan. That's what it meant.
To the detectives, not to you?
I actually see this as a position because in my absence, General Mokhale became the acting DEVCOM. So the dockets returned. It was not me, it was General Mokhale. So it's returned to the position of the Divisional Commissioner, Detective and Forensic Services. So that would be a position that I occupy. So directly, that is me.
Okay, General, and so this plan was then presented at the meeting on
Yes.
the 6th of March.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that meeting?
Yeah. In that meeting, as General Khumalo was presenting, as I said earlier, General Sibiya, I think the minister, were of the view that even the dockets on the court roll should be handed over. But after discussions, or let me also hasten to add that, commissioners, part of the plan included the reduced number of members who would now remain in the PKTT in view of the fact that only the 114 dockets will remain. So which means you don't need the whole lot. I think there were over 90, if I'm not mistaken. The number was reduced to 68. So that was one of the other key critical components of the plan. So in that meeting, I think the argument that the 114 dockets must remain with the PKTT won.
And General, just so that we place it on record, could you look at paragraph 23
Okay.
and 24? There, your language there is much stronger. Do you care to comment on those two paragraphs?
Yeah. I'm reflecting here on General Sibiya's thinking with the disbandment, that actually General Khumalo was not a detective and therefore couldn't be responsible for investigations. So his argument in that meeting, for me, resonated with the letter that he wrote to say that the handover should be complete so that no dockets would be under General Khumalo's leadership, including those court-going dockets. So whatever elements that he was arguing about in that meeting, or arguing on, or arguing for, it was actually all aimed at ensuring that there's a complete handover to the detectives on the dockets.
You then say that General Sibiya's sentiments were also shared by the Minister and the Chief of Staff.
As I said earlier, yes.
And the approach to retain the dockets was supported by the National Commissioner and General
Msidi,
Msidi.
yes.
And you say ultimately what then became of the plan? What was the resolution?
The plan was approved in principle, I think, with those amendments to say that the 114 dockets will remain with the PKTT, but also that now these 114 dockets with those assigned investigators, as and when each case gets concluded, those detectives will then have to go back to their station of origin or business unit of origin, but also the combat members as well who were protecting them will also have to withdraw and go back to their business unit of origin.
That, of course, would not apply to detectives who had more than one docket in court. So if you finalize this one,
and the other one
you
is
have
still,
another,
it
so
doesn't
you-
affect you.
you-
Yes.
yeah.
So it means that it meant your workload had to be concluded. So if you had 3 dockets, you had to conclude all of them.
General, when you say that the plan was approved in principle, does that include, if you look at the action plan, if you go back and then you've got the item 2, no, item 3, approval of the new call-up instruction and
Yes.
financial authority for 2025-26.
26, yes.
It included that as well.
It is
in
included, and I
principle.
think that was specifically for those members who would have remained, because their term, I think, was coming to an end. So there had to be a new call-up instruction for them to be able to continue with their responsibilities.
Okay. So in your understanding of how that meeting concludes in principle, adopting the plan, your understanding is that even though, and please correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
I may be posing it not correctly, that even though the minister's letter or instruction says immediate
Immediately, yeah.
disbandment, in principle, the minister accepted that there would be that call-up instruction
Yes.
and a budget allocation for
Yes.
the period. You would accept that?
I would agree with that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
And General, just to put this to you, Generals Masemola and Kumalo testified that there wasn't actual approval. What's your comment to that?
And I listened to both of them, and also I think there was an engagement to understand what does it mean. In the second meeting of the 27th, progress was supposed to be reported of the deliberations of the 6th, which means it was the approval plus the amendments. How far have you gone? And the information note was supposed to be written for approval, and that never happened. So for me, that was not the plan, but the information note. That's my understanding.
Thank you, General. And then,
Sorry, I'm not sure I understand. Are you saying if they testified or we understood their evidence to be that there was no approval of a plan,
Yes.
they are incorrect in that, or we are mistaken? Which one is it?
For me,
Because-
it's a perspective. Hence, I'm clarifying probably what it could mean for them. Because in principle, that plan, hence Kumalo and I were able to even plan after that because there was a principled approval.
Okay.
But in the police, as I think I said to the evidence leader, for something to be complete for budgeting, you need that information note.
I see. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner.
and so, General, after this meeting, you then speak of a call that General Kumalo reports to you from General Mutsebe. Can you explain what happened there?
Yeah. It was during March and after the meeting of the 6th. And again, Commissioners, please pardon me because I don't remember all the dates and it's not deliberate or at misleading the Commission.
You already attributed it to age, General.
Thank you for acknowledging that, Commissioner. Okay, General Kumalo gave me a disturbing call and said that he received a call from General Mutsebe, who asked, who informed him that she was coming to collect the PKTT dockets. So immediately he ended the call and called me and asked, but why would Mutsebe call him for the docket? So I said, no, General, don't worry, I will address it. And I called General Mutsebe and I said to her, can you please cease communicating with Kumalo on the matter because he and I were seized with the matter. Now, what I didn't do, and I admitted to this commission, I didn't ask her where did she get it from. But I had an assumption because all the component heads, they have the direct access to the DNC. That's no surprise. You go in and you find them sitting. So my thinking was maybe General Sibia kept on reminding. And I said to the evidence leader, if maybe you need people to actually collaborate or corroborate that, it's fine. They are there. He would ask, how far are you? You are not moving. You are not taking the instruction of the minister. So I felt that maybe he got impatient with me. He got impatient with me because he assumed that maybe I was actually, because Kumalo, we called, he knew that maybe because of the relationship we have, therefore I'm not willing to execute. So my thinking was maybe Mutsipe got an instruction from him, and I say, underlining, it's an assumption, it's not fact. But also why I would think like that, and I think evidence leader asked me earlier as to why maybe all the relationship between me and General Sibia. In February, after the letter was received, after I came back from the being alone, he's got no family. The elderly person were hijacked and he was assaulted, his house was broken, and he was staying alone, he's got no family. The elderly person complained to the police, and actually at some point even some of the police took advantage of him. So NATCOM got that complaint and he asked me to address it. Normally I wouldn't undertake that task of dealing with complaints directly. I gave it to General Shibiri. But at the time, General Shibiri I think either him or his wife was not well, I can't remember. But the complainant kept on reminding NATCOM to say, but nobody called me. This elderly guy actually had to flee Gauteng and was in Cape Town. So NATCOM reminded me that there's this matter. So I then said to him, can I go now to go and see the complainant, which he said yes. General Sibia has to sign my itinerary because he's my supervisor. And he had a serious problem. And I think I did submit the WhatsApp messages. Even after saying to him, Mpati, I would never, he believed that I was working against him. He believed that my trip to Cape Town was anomalous. I remember I even wrote in Zulu, Mpati, ngeke ngakwenza kabi, you know? And it got to a point where I said, you know what, I do what you want. You can deploy me if you want, redeploy me if you want. Because I felt, Because he said in the end, I know now. What does that mean? It means I know that actually you are working against me. So I said, after this complaint, I'm gone. So in that sense, I thought maybe he felt that maybe he wasn't sure where I stand. I don't know why, but that's what I want to present to the Commission.
Chair.
Let us adjourn and resume at 11:20. Let's adjourn.